It is, can you feel pain while simultaneously feeling free? That is a good question. So first of all, I think we need to decipher a few things, like what is freedom, before we answer that question. Just shutting some excess programs. So the question is what is it when I say freedom? Like, what do I mean by it? Because everyone could have such different interpretations of what freedom is. Does it mean freedom in physical sensations? Freedom of the mind? Not being imprisoned? Like, what is freedom? You might hear lots of wind sounds, but it might not come across as wind sounds. It might be a bit distorted. But we've had really intense storms in Northern Europe the last few days. It's still raging here. So what I mean by freedom is, I suppose, what people would call waking up from this believing that you're a name, an idea, a somebody that's moving through time, to your true nature, which is timeless. And it's not an intellectual recognition, although that is part of the process. It's an energetic shift from feeling like who you are, like what is experiencing now, is this boundless freedom of, you could say, consciousness or mystery or God. So it's feeling like that is who's experiencing now, not a singular entity which is thought bound, which goes into time, which we can describe. You know, we could describe my character that goes into time, Lisa. She came from Great Britain, which is also called the United Kingdom, but it should be called the United Queendom because it's had a queen for many years. And nobody ever questions that, and Lisa, the character, always wonders why people don't question that. Is that just so ingrained patriarchy that people wouldn't even dare to question that? Or wouldn't even think about it? No, it's a kingdom, even though it's a queen, and we've mostly had queens for the last 200 or 300 years, but well, it's a kingdom. So if anyone is watching now who could potentially change that because they're high up in the government, I really would like to live in a queendom before the queen dies. Because then it will be a kingdom. The next in line is a kingdom, and she's in her 90s now, so I might never get to live in a queendom, which would be freaking fantastic. I mean, we should all be up rioting as women. Like, who doesn't want to live in a queendom? But anyway, I don't even live there anymore. But this, all the men are like, we don't want to live in a queendom. Out there, the whole island's just going to become women if it becomes a queendom. They're like, oh God, can't cope. She already thinks and behaves she's a queen. Now, if she lives in a queendom, it'll be 10 times worse. Yeah. So we all have characters. So Lisa would like to live in a queendom one day. I would also like to live in a unicorndom. I think this would be pretty cool. The United Unicorndom. Who shoots out rainbows from its horn. Like a hose pipe. Anybody who's in a bad mood. Yeah. So Lisa would like to live in a queendom or a unicorndom one day. And that is a character which we can speak about through words and language. So you now have all this image of me now one day living in a queendom. And that's an image that appears in your mind that has attachments to words, and there's all these connections and meanings that happen. So some people don't actually have images, but most people have images and words combined. But if we took out that part of our mind, the conceptualizing, so animals don't have that so strongly. They do to an extent have thinking, but they don't really have language or words, but they do have imagery and some form of thinking. But if we took that out, like say if we never evolved to be speaking words, we didn't put meaning to words, we still would be, but we would just be animals with a lot less gas coming out of our mouths. But it doesn't change the essence of who Lisa is. Like, it doesn't change the internal sense of being. Because we can't describe who Lisa's been in time, it doesn't change that initial being that's here all the time and that empty looking. You know, when I was younger, I thought it would be impossible to not be somebody. I thought that you had to be somebody in order to exist, in order to live in this world. But actually the somebody is an optional thing that comes into humanity with the ability to communicate. Otherwise, who are you if you don't think about yourselves in words and images? Like, try now to think about yourself without using any word or any image. You can't. There's just this pure beingness, and this beingness is made up of love, this I am that I talk about, and this empty looking. And when you really begin to see it, it's so fantastical, because you can't find the place where it starts and stops. So you can't find a place inside the body where it ends, and then a place outside the body where it starts. So inside or outside, you can't find the starting or the ending. I think I got a little muddled there. I'm sorry if I did. But basically, beingness cannot be found. So if you take out language and you don't think about yourself in words or images, there is this sense of being that is undefinable. It cannot be separated out from what's happening. And it always is. And that's the essence of what everybody and everything is. It's the birthright of all things, and it's the absolute true freedom. It's actually where love is. And it's in all things. Like, it's always free. It's never clouded with the smoke of the human. It's always free. And it might sound really weird that it's in all things, but like, if you go into your experience now, where is the end of beingness and the beginning of beingness? And even though the images are changing, it's still always one thing, because we never have past or future images. We only ever have this moment. I know that sounds really confusing and like I'm contradicting myself all over the shop, but you only ever have this moment. So things appear and disappear in this moment. So like an hour ago I was outside and my umbrella was like being pushed the wrong way because of the wind, and the rain was like hitting me in the face, and anger was arising at my partner, which is not fair to my partner. It was a bit of blame towards him because of being in that situation. So there was all this stuff happening. But that's never existing now. That is only images that appear now. It's not like we have this past in which we can get back to and it actually exists separately from this moment. We have this moment always, and in that, past and future are coming and going. And the past and future is always images in our mind. It doesn't actually really exist. Like, so to Khaleesi, she actually wasn't in this predicament that I was in with that's the umbrella going, you know, when you battle against the wind and then you try to go towards the wind so it pushes it back again, but it doesn't. It's just like, and then you think at one point that you might finally take off and be floating above everyone, and then your partner would see you and come and help you, but you don't. You just battle with it like a lunatic. Yeah. But that doesn't exist ever. It just seemingly existed. It exists now. I created all types of images in your mind through my wonderful acting. And in my mind, but that's all it ever is. So your whole life story is in your boop, 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 boop. And this is why, like, law of attraction and all these spiritual things, and you've got cognitive therapy and behavioral therapy, all these things try to look at the way the mind thinks, because your whole story is in your mind always. Because we can never grab onto the past. It no longer exists. And when all of us are dead, all humans are dead, where is human history? Who remembers human history? It's like that amazing koan from Zen Buddhism. If a tree falls in the forest and there's no one there to hear it, does it make a sound? So majestical and mysterious what's happening here. What happens in the human is that they get so entrenched in the story of who they are, which is fictional, and then they have this brain maybe that's inside the head that creates these neural pathways which replays patterns of stories, and then there's so much investment in that the human becomes very contracted and gets into what I would call suffering. They become consumed with themselves. They become like me, 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 me. And that's them dying. Yeah. I bet all of you are wishing that I hadn't actually hired my microphone now, because it's like a bit unpredictable, my sound levels when I'm doing a talk. I should keep it all steady to make it nice. But the me never exists. So Tony Parsons, I used to enjoy listening to Tony Parsons when I lived in London. Back in the days where you actually went to the talks, you didn't get all this free stuff on the internet. And he used to say, me can only exist with time. Like, if you look at the word time, it has me in it. T-I-M-E, for all those dyslexics out there. T-I-M-E, you see the last two is me, time. So me can only exist with time, and we never have time. We only ever have this freaking moment. You is a daydream. You isn't the truth. It doesn't mean that we don't act without yous, because if you did try to, you would end up dead pretty quick, or losing the game, or homeless, or on the streets. So it doesn't mean that we don't have these characters which help us negotiate this complex, simplistic living that we have. It just means that that's not the experiencer, that's not the truth. The rest of society believe it's the truth, and I sometimes feel astounded how people just don't kill themselves. I know that sounds really dramatic, but to really believe in yourself, to me feels so hellish, because they really believe that it's their fault, that they've got to have a happy life, that they really exist. And as you get older, you see so many painful things. Like, you have to watch your parents die, most people. You have to nurse your parents. You have to die yourself, like physical injury, dealing with finances, divorce, loss, some people war, poverty, like all these things. But people manage to survive without ever knowing this, and for some people it doesn't seem so bad, but for some of us it isn't acceptable. So we get into this subject. So you is fictional. It's something that you're making up now. It's not the actuality. The actuality is pure being. Pure being is so mysterious. People call it all types of words. No one can agree. Everyone says they've got the deepest version. The deepest, no thing. And then you've got the other ones that like, no, everything. And consciousness and I amness and God, divinity, mystery, light, love. And so people believe in this me, this person, and they believe that's who they are. So then they believe they are an insecure person, or they are a happy person, or they are a rich person, or they are a lower than person. And it tends to be that in most people, your mind will go negative. And my projection onto that is that our mind will have a tendency to find problems, because that's what it's set up to do. But I think it's way more complex than that. But essentially the mind will find problems, and if it's fixated on itself, then itself will become a problem, or the people around it will become a problem, or your environment. And this is what we call dualistic life. It's the life in opposites, which is in thought. But the me becomes an energetical thing. The thought becomes so believed in, it really feels like there is something limited inside the body. Whereas when you go beyond that limitation, your essence is unlimited and never moves. The world seemingly moves, but the essence never moves. So things come and go, but who you are never moves. It's always here. You can't lose it. People get into the idea that they can lose it because they've got to put their attention in consciousness, and that is the truth. Like when you keep your personal awareness still in itself, and that you lose it when you go off in thoughts. And that's like a beginning stage of this waking up. Well, not a beginning stage, maybe it's a medium stage or a towards the end stage. I can't really judge, but it's a belief that you are doing it. The consciousness is there already, always. And the you is playing out in front of it. It really is an energetic movement that happens back to something that's already there. So when you wake up in the morning, there is instantaneously consciousness and the beingness. It's not like you wake up and then you're like, oh, let me just program in my consciousness on, because who would be conscious of that? So if you had like little me that programs in the consciousness, who's conscious of that person doing that? There's always consciousness in every experience, and this beingness. And the consciousness is no thing and all things. You could say the consciousness does not exist as something you can find. It is all things and no things. It disappears in itself, which is everything. Yeah. So, what was the question again? It was about, can you still feel pain while simultaneously feeling free? So the body feels pain. It can feel emotional pain or physical pain, and they're really very similar in lots of ways. So I had emotional pain as well as physical pain when I was out in the storm, as the umbrella was hitting me, and physical of holding onto it, the rain and the wind was bashing me. So there was physical pain, but it was mild. But there was also an emotional pain. There was anger arising. Both of those are more on the painful side, but it wasn't very extreme pain. So that can arise, but there's still that consciousness that's there that is free. What the seeker gets into is believing that this person that's moving in time has to become still like consciousness. There can be phases where that happens and that shifts things, but the purpose of the person is to move in time and to have experiences. So it is to feel anger, it is to feel pain in that situation. Not to be still, but the stillness is there. And there comes a point where there is a shift and where that stillness is always present. It was always present prior, but it was always covered before. It was covered a lot of the time. And it's like an energetic shift. It's like you get turned inside out and the me story goes into the background, and what comes forward is your essence. And that's freedom to me. And that can be in everything. So you can have immense pain, emotional, psychological, like all of us, including myself, are going to experience psychological pain. There are some teachers that claim to no longer have any psychological pain anymore. But that's not in my experience, so I can't really talk about it. To me, if my, say, mother dies, there's going to be psychological pain. Or if Khaleesi, who is sleeping in her beddy over there, dies, there is going to be psychological pain. Or my partner. Or if I, see something really traumatic. And then there will have to be a working on releasing that pain from the body. And the same with physical pain, that there could be all types of things, like some people get arthritis, all types of illnesses, diseases, like the long COVID. So there can be physical pain that comes, and that too is arising in experiencing, and that's the key to it. So these pains arise, but they're no longer you. Who you are is this freedom that's beyond that. And they are something that's appearing and coming and going in you. So your essence is grounded in who you are. And then there is the movement of the person in time, which has the pain and has the psychological pain. And you can address that in time. You can go to a psychologist, you can go to a therapist, you can go to a doctor. You could get treatments, you could take drugs if there's physical pain, but that isn't the experiencer anymore. So you can simultaneously be crying your eyes out from emotional pain while being deeply connected to true self. That's very hard for people to try to imagine, and until it's experienced, it's just really abstract, because the mind will always personalize freedom and think that freedom belongs to the person. So freedom consists of you never being upset again or experiencing pain, always being in pleasure, not having any issues. All those juicy things it likes to imagine. So I can't imagine that there is something beyond it that's free, because it's always in subject object, it's always in dualistic thinking. Me versus world, me versus other. Yeah. So then the question is, okay, so how do we get to that? And you know, it's something that's going to happen. There isn't one path for everybody. So there's two answers to this. Is you have an idea of you getting to it, and you don't really get to it. What happens is there becomes enough space in you for that energy to shift. So I feel what has to happen is the person settles to an extent. So it becomes more spacious, it becomes more free on the human level. And then it's like the light is able to shine through, and then it naturally breaks through, and then that becomes at the front, and the person goes into the background. And there isn't one path for everyone. Like, the way in which you settle yourself down is completely unique to you. You know, for some people it's Osho therapies, for some people it's psychotherapy, for some people it's like a combination between somatic, physical therapies, understanding themselves, going on journeys, going to different teachers, doing meditation, yoga, pranayama, breathing, Wim Hof. You know, it's all different things which settle the person down and allow the person to become more calm in its life. And then it listens to non-duality, it listens to this message, and something begins to bubble up. But it's not like a simple process like becoming an accountant or going for psychoanalysis. It's quite mysterious, and it's really unique. And if there was a one fits all and one way to this, then that would be like a really famous system that everyone would know of. But the illusion is that you believe that you're going to get to it. You aren't going to get to it, because who is this you? Who do you think yourself to be? So all these things are amazing things to do. So question, who is that person that's asking the question? Who is it that wants to come free? And you'll notice that you only ever find a time-bound thing. You'll find something in time that wants something. So you'll find an idea that wants something. So there's a you that has the idea that it wants to become free because it can't bear its life anymore or something, because it's seek for so many years. And that is an idea of you going through time with lots of images. And that's not what's being talked about. What else is here? It doesn't mean that we don't do things in time, but it's just this addiction to this you. Like, what else is here? Yeah. Okay, so that's, I don't know. It's hard to know when you're talking to a computer, you know, where people are like, hang on, mate, what the hell are you speaking about? Or whether they're like, So you can ask questions and anything that's not clear to you. My Skype address is Lisa Cairns 12, and you can send me a Skype request. If you can't remember that, you can find it in the box below. And you can either call in or you can send me a message, but don't just call in, just put call me and I will call you when you're ready. So put call me and in the messages in Skype, and I will call you when I'm ready. Cool. And make sure you have a headset, microphone and good internet connection and a quiet space if you want to call in. I'll just give them a moment to see that. I get my headset in. And just while we're waiting for hands, I always forget to say this. There is another channel called Lisa Cairns video clips, maybe Dash Osborne's channel. I'm not sure if he says that anymore. And this channel isn't run by me, but it's really nicely done. He edits all the talks I do and puts short clips out there and titles them all nicely and puts them in playlists. So you can find that. It's associated with my channel, so you can just scroll down my channel and then you'll see it.